All right, we've been neck deep in the book of Jonah, and we're in chapter 4, and we got through the first 4 verses. Kind of talked about grace a little bit, but now we're going to get into the pity party of all pity parties, the greatest wine moment of all time. Here it is. In verse 5, starting in chapter 4, Jonah had gone out and sat down on a place east of the city. There, he made himself a shelter, sat in its shade, and waited to see what would happen to the city. In other words, Jonah was still hoping that those Ninevites were about to get nailed. Smite me, O mighty smiter. And then the Lord God provided a leafy plant and made it grow up over Jonah to give shade for his head, to ease his discomfort. And Jonah was very happy about the plant. Just for the record, everything I plant dies. Like, I fertilized my yard and I killed it fertilizing it. God makes a plant and it grows up like overnight. I'm very jealous. But at dawn the next day, verse 7, God provided a worm which chewed the plant so that it withered. It was a hungry worm. When the sun rose, God provided a scorching east wind, and the sun blazed on Jonah's head so that he grew faint. He wanted to die and said, "It would be better for me to die than to live." But God said to Jonah, "Is it right for you to be angry about the plant?" "It is," he said, "and I'm so angry, I wish I were dead." Okay, I'm making fun of Jonah a little bit, but I'm making fun of Jonah because honestly, I do the same thing. I, I can throw spectacular pity parties for myself. When I look at things that I see that I don't like, things that aren't fair, things that I think should be different, things that I think are just wrong, and I will get mad at myself and I'll get mad at the world and sometimes I'll get angry at God because how dare he? How dare he interrupt my thinking and what my plans were to take his plans as priority? That's what Jonah's doing here, and that's what we do a lot. We really do. I have in my mind the perfect life laid out for me. And yet God, throughout my entire life, has given me different paths and different destinations from what I imagined. And every single time, God's path has been a far better path than I could have imagined. I've grown, I have stretched, I have thrived, I have grown deeper in my relationship with Him by following His paths. Jonah, ironically enough, has already forgotten the lessons that God has given him when it comes to His sovereignty. Twice in these passages, God says, "Is it right for you to be angry?" And Jonah doesn't get it because he says in verse 9, "It is, I'm so angry, I wish I were dead." And then earlier in it, he says, "Now, Lord, take my life, for it's better for me to die than to live." Jonah has forgotten what his place is versus the place with God. And we do this. I do this. And Jonah had nothing to do with the plant. Jonah had nothing to do with the plant being grown. Jonah had nothing to do with the plant being killed. He had none of that. All he did was sit there and wait for destruction to fall on other people and just sit there and go, "All right, okay, God, here we go. Let's do it. Let's let him have it." And God gave grace instead. In His sovereignty, He chose to give grace. He gives grace. He gives mercy on whom He will give mercy. And I think maybe perhaps we should be grateful for the fact that He chose to give us mercy when He didn't have to. So when Jonah says, "It would be better for me to die than to live," God looks at him and goes, "That's not your call, Jonah. It's mine." When Jonah gets angry and wishing people were dead, God's response is, "That's not your call. That's mine." When the plant dies and Jonah gets angry, God says again, "That's not your call. It's mine." And I think that's a great lesson for us to walk away from today. It's not our call. It's God's.